Scroll of Thoth, episode 29, May 25th, 2016. Holy shit, we're back.
Yeah, and I see you can count to 10 using all of your fingers.
I can.
I'm amazed all the time about the new skills you learn.
It's been a long time since we've done one of these.
It has.
But we have been doing things in the interim, as in Scroll of Thoth Publishing has finally kicked off because I have finally found the book that I thought was interesting enough and different enough to do.
Great.
And the major reason why we are back is because we have with us Frater Zentra L, third degree of the Magical Pact of the Illuminants of Thanateros, Priest of Chaos, primary narrator for the Order of Emergent Magic, and one of the discoverers of the Gutter Bible, which is the first publication, Scroll of Thoth Press. Frater, how you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. Book looks great. Well done. Really happy with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Let's start out with, what do you want to start with? How we found it, when we started, what it is?
Oh, there's several things I want to know. First, I think, though, you should tell us a little bit about the OEM.
Okay, well, OEM is essentially, my answer to, modern occult organizations. OEM is stands for Order of Emergent Magi, and I chose that basically because I think Magi is kind of a cool non-gender form word, and being a modern occult organization, I think it's important that some people don't like being called priests or priestesses and thus forth and whatnot. But I felt that the term Magi was androgynous enough to be all-inclusive, and that was really important with me for naming the order. Order just makes sense. It's got an O. It is a magical order. And, it's Emergent Magic, Emergent Magi, Emergent Magic, or EMK, moniker for it, is the system of magic, essentially, that's being developed from the Gutter Bible through the techniques, essentially, of chaos magic and black magic throughout the centuries, kind of studying old school techniques and applying them to the Gutter Bible. So that's where OM comes from, the Order of Emergent Magi. There's not really a great order. The PR title, primary narrator, PR sounded kind of nicer than PN. But that's called that. And there's a few of us, a main one, the actual tome. I have the actual Gutter Bible, and the rest of us that are concerned with publishing it and doing the magic kind of on a more full-time basis. But certainly anybody that works with us at any time can, be an OM person, work with OM. It's an all-inclusive type of organization, type of group.
Well, I like the name, particularly seeing as it's more androgynous, because
Thank you.
In order to get around the whole priestess thing, I just refer to myself as Reverend.
That's great. A lot of people have come up with a lot of different ways to do that. This is just kind of my spin on it, But thanks. I appreciate it. I spent a lot of time on it. I didn't just sit around and say, "Oh, we call it this," and have these words. Also, OEM is an OM, so it's kind of it kind of pulls an Eastern influence there too. I thought that was kind of catchy, but yeah, that's something that was developed over a couple of years. A couple of years of working and figuring out, kind of where this magic was taking us.
So the most interesting part to me is that you did not write the Gutter Bible.
No, I did discover it. I discovered it in New York City on a corner, a street corner at a crossroads in the gutter, right at the summer equinox. I think it's 2010 now, and at that time I had no idea it was a summer equinox, because I do black magic full time, but frankly I've never been one to follow any of the star stuff. I never know when it's Walpurgis and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, well, whatever. I don't know. I don't follow any of that kind of magic whatsoever. I didn't figure that out until probably like last year, when I finally figured out. No, it was 2 years ago when we first reprinted it. I wanted to have when we discovered it on there. And I was able to research it because I was there on a business trip. So all I had to do was at work pull out my folders from the trade show of that weekend. You know, I know it was a Sunday night because that was the last day of the show, last night that we were there. I know it was around 4 a.m. because, well, that's when the bars finally threw us out. So when I Googled that, it turns out that's right at the summer
Holiday.
time. So yeah, holiday, the summer holiday where the stars and all that come together. But that wasn't any part of it. I wasn't walking around New York like, oh, it's, you know, today's the day to discover something. That just happened. I kind of figured that out later after I'd been working with it for a while. But around, and you know, as you can see from the reproduction, it's a basic composition notebook. I had been keeping composition notebooks full of magical journals, and my archives at that time for the temple, the IoT temple I was working with, were kept in composition notebooks. I have stacked probably my tarot book, you know, where I write all that kind of stuff is one of those. So when I saw it, I was just kind of like thinking, and I was with people that I did magic with. I was with two, you know, there was 4 of us together. It was my wife and 2 of my brother and sister from the IoT, like I mentioned but you know, people that I'm heavily involved with magic with. So it was kind of like on the mind. You know, we were departing at the crossroads. I looked down, saw it. I was thinking to myself, oh, it's like my journal. I'm going to pick it up. And I looked at it, and initially I did throw it back down. I didn't pick it up and take it. I picked it up, I looked at it. I was like, that was weird, and I threw it back down. And then I was saying goodbye to my friend for a couple more seconds, and I thought to myself, I was like, that was really weird. That wasn't just kind of weird. That was fucking really weird. And I picked it back up, and I looked at it again for a second, and I was like, I'm taking this back to my room with me. And I got it back to the room, and I was looking through it, and I was like, man, this is heavy. Like, I'm going to be doing black magic with this forever. Like, I knew instantly. I saw it. I was like, this is great. I didn't know how hard it was going to be. But yeah, absolutely. That's it. So it was discovered. We found it. And, you know, from there was the progression kind of started at that night in New York City. You know, I've never traced back the exact corner that I found it at, but it's definitely doable. It was fresh enough in all of our minds. I know and have talked to other residents of New York City that know the bar that we were at the last time, because it's a small tiki bar with no air conditioning in Manhattan and pretty much no sign. There's other people that have been there, and it's open super late. Not a lot of bars around that are open late. I've talked to other people from New York that are like, yeah, I think I know that place. I know what you're talking about. So it's definitely doable to do a little pilgrimage out there and figure out what corner it was. I think we could probably do it, but I don't know specifically right now. That's a journey for another day.
Soon to be a shrine.
Yeah, something like that. Soon to
be a shrine. So, yeah. Okay, another thing that I find really unique about Emergent Magic and the Gutter Bible is how the system was built, where the names come from, how things are discovered.
Right. The actual magic of EMK rather than just the finding of a crazy journal. Right. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. You know, I could talk a little bit about that. Essentially, it's the idea that the magic you're doing is you're staring into the abyss, and the abyss is giving you information back. It's not about trying to really get a result in the real world. Like, are you trying to get like A, B, or C in your mundane life? More as like you're doing magic as like you're an advanced chess player, or you play sports or music, or a musician. It's something that, like art, that you master. It's experimental. So at the beginning of it, when we were kind of like messing around with the different pages, seeing what was in there, there is a verse in the Gutter Bible there's a mad woman named Rishwan. That was the initial invocation that was done between me and Sora Panthera. Probably the scariest invocation I've ever seen, like personally in my life. And at that point, I'd been working with Sora Panthera, who's an excellent magician in her own right. She's great at invocations, you know, particularly that's one of her real strong skill sets. She can throw herself totally into an entity or the deity. You know, she was Babylon at the main, the Babylon invocant for Babylon Festival last year. A lot of people saw, you know, what she could do there. But this was just a very intimate invocation between me and her. And I've seen her in so many different states, vaulted consciousness and gnosis, extreme states over the years and the magic that we've done together. But what was unique about this was that the spirit that overtook her was like really exuding fear from her in a way that I kind of hadn't seen before. Like she was crying, like scared, lost. And I was expecting like something more like, evil and tentacly, not this like scared, lost, empathetic little girl. And I almost stopped the invocation really early on in the work because it was just creepy. It was super creepy. We worked through it and we got some initial kind of groundwork from that. And after we finished and banished up the, our perusal over, the ritual afterwards was like, oh, it's a scared, lost little girl, right? It's this entity in between the spaces. And, I was just talking a lot about being chased by a monster, what kind of the things we're getting. And so our original reaction was kind of like, oh, maybe we should, trade, like we should give this little girl like sigils and stuff to help protect her from this evil monster. Maybe we should like, start doing magic to like, and then, after time meditating on it and thinking about it and like dream cycles over a few days and weeks and stuff, it started to be like, well, it doesn't make any sense because this is a Cthulian based magic, which we'd already always kind of approached it as because we were heavily in mythos at the time. Then, those entities aren't like these like nice little things that you help. They're like these horrible things that want to devour you. And that was the original conception of what became Mungloth. The idea of an anglerfish of an entity, this huge monster entity that has this lure, like this little light, that humans are attracted to. And that's the scared, lost little girl that you're empathetic towards. Like, oh, we should help them. And then waiting behind you is like this monster to devour you. And that was the original concept. Now I was getting ready to take the Gutter Bible at this point on tour of the world. We had done a big thing at Babylon Festival involving a different vine of EMK that's more a dual emergence of me and Danica's, which is the Mama Eowek paradigm, which it's kind of a complex segue, but it's another part of the Gutter Bible. So we had done public stuff with it, and I was getting ready to do kind of a European tour with it amongst the IoT sections, the sections that are public that you can find online, just in a vague sense. I was taking the IoT, going to Germany to do this big working. So I did a separation of the entity, I guess you could call ritual, with Danica right on the way out there. And the idea behind this was to make the entity into a trinity, because I wanted this to be like I felt that it was such a powerful entity that just like it, and also I'm a Catholic, so I guess trinities, plus threes and multiples of three and trinities are throughout magic everywhere. It's the triangle. I mean, it's everywhere. So my conception of this, of Mungloth was as a trinity kind of deity. So the first major working towards, book one was in Germany, and what we did was we split up into 3 different groups, and invoked, roughly these monsters and got these names. From that point, we did another series of rituals back in America where we used the names, but then got essentially what they did, lust, rage, and greed. And lust, rage, and greed didn't come specifically from us, the people that were invoking the entities, but rather like it was a large group ritual outside. Rather, the people around us were telling us the aspects that we were showing when we were invoked in these demon forms. Like one was more lustful, one seemed angry and was more rage, and one was like trying to get away, and like we equated that to greed, like wanted more, like outside of the triangle. So, to back up a little bit, now we're talking about my idea about filters and using a filter system to develop a paradigm is that instead of, one person having all these ideas and doing the magic, or a small group, you have large groups over different countries, different parts of the world, and different backgrounds, all doing different small parts of it. So you're kind of casting a net amongst all these different, magical practitioners and like drawing back the information through everybody. So it's like a discussion. It's not like one person is like, oh, this was just revealed, it's this now. It's more like a dozen or so people who are all practicing magicians at different levels of experience, at different age, coming from different backgrounds of life, are all like, oh, okay, well, this is what I thought, this is what I thought, this is what I thought. Oh, okay, so what we're saying is it's something like this. And then you go forward from that point. So different filters, different people that are invoking. So at first you've got me and Danica, you've got her brain, in the universe and whatever she's opening it to. But then you go, you do the 3 deities, and you've got 3 people and 3 triangles. That's 3 filters. And then you've got 3 other people talking to each of those entities and interacting with them. And then you've also got other people doing stuff around the main ritual. So you've got a couple dozen people now. and you're starting to expand that consciousness, not one person's idea. And then you take that and you move that to the next point. Well, now you got three triangles, three more people, three different people doing those same three entities, but now with a little more information, being interrogated by three other people or worked with by three other people, so that the information we're getting back is like being interpreted by a person and also the person giving it. So each time we're splitting it up and making it more magicians involved in the magic, the more further we're going down in the paradigm. So eventually, once we got the aspects of the Trinity, what they do, what their names were, we finally refined them down all and got the name of the big fish, which is Mungloth. And essentially, Mungloth is the god of magic, and he has three aspects: lust, rage, and greed. The gatekeeper to the paradigm is Rishwan, the small little girl. Now, the book 2 stuff, that's a progression from that, where we started to invoke Mungloth and ask him who the other allies are, and that's where we get to Zaki and Ka'aye, who are the other entities, and of spirits, which is book 2. That's going too far. That's a lot of information at once.
Yeah.
It's a lot of information at once. You got any more questions about specific things?
You ready for something about that?
Well, the thing that I was looking at, because this is my first introduction to any of this, I was kind of taken by your idea of the protocols of the Order of Emergent Magi.
Did I warn you that Colleen was going to twist your nuts a little?
Oh, no, I'm all for it, though.
You guys sure are an angry lot, or it seems that way. And magic certainly is often the art of altering consciousness. I don't have any trouble with that. Yoga.
Yes.
And yoga is how you practice magic, or how you get into the magical frame of mind?
Essentially, the basic building blocks that you need for successful ritual are all in the disciplines of yoga. And what I mean by that is in a very broad general sense of Eastern disciplines. Essentially, Liber MMM, as much as I'm not a fan of some of Pete Carroll's later work, which is pretty much a powerhouse of that. What you got in there, you've got breath control, breathing, motionlessness, basic thought control, making thought forms in your mind's eye, being able to hold those, sitting still for long periods of time, and all those kind of basic practices are the essential smallest building blocks that you're going to need to be successful in magical ritual. Now, that's not to say that yoga is magic and magic is yoga. I also make that distinction. I don't really like that. I don't like the idea that, you don't have to meditate to be a magical practitioner. However, you do need to be aware of breathing and body movements and stillness, and be able to at least have some kind of control in those areas to be really successful in large group rituals. Because especially when you've got people presenting different things, I mean, you're gonna need to have a lot of those skill sets. And a lot of it is inside the mind's eye. I mean, if you're doing any kind of ritual, if you can't do the visualizations, inside your own mind of the goddess or the gods or whatever that you're working with, if you haven't developed or spent any time doing that skill, then, just buying statues of a goddess and burning stuff around it's not going to be as effective.
Yeah, I get that, and I identify with that. I guess it was the word yoga that triggered me, because
I understand.
Said meditation, which I don't necessarily think is a yoga practice, although it is certainly more of an Eastern practice.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I guess I'm just using. I would say that I'm kind of stealing from Crowley and his definition of yoga, just being yoga is union. Yoga means union, kind of thing. I'm using a very generic term of all the kind of Eastern type of disciplines.
Yeah, and I may be a little bit different audience than you might be aiming yourself at as well, because I'm not necessarily a follower of Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
But you know his work.
Oh, I know his work quite well. I've got several of his books on my shelf. Okay, then the Psychedelia.
Yes.
Because I'm going to go through all of these.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
once you lick the eye of God, you can never forget the taste. Now, I totally agree with that.
All right.
I'm significantly older than you, and back in the 70s, I used to drop a lot of acid and wander around and, listen to, listen to the concerts in the sky and nearly got run over by a car doing that, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So, that's great. I'm okay with that one, but
Scroll of Thoth podcast is not to condone the use of any illegal substances.
that's just where I was going. And for me, it was like using psychedelic or psychotropic type medications or invoking an altered state of conscience. I didn't know how to do that by myself without the aid. And I found that as I practiced more and as I began to discipline myself, I no longer needed the aid.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple things, that statement is directly related to my personal shamanistic journey. And also, it's real important for me with magic, and another distinction here with magic and yoga, is that when, shamanism, the beginnings of magic were psychedelic influenced, going way back to the caveman times. The shamans were the seers that went on the psychedelic journeys. And, there was drumming and there was like a communal psychedelic experience, once a month or at the cycles of the moon or whatever, the different paradigm of the different over the thousands of years of early, human mind, human evolution and human societies before, city states and bigger king gods. When you got shamans and you've got, people living off the land. And they would come together, and the shamans would essentially be, they would be the gatekeepers. Everybody had their own part. There were the dancers, there were the hunters, there were the children, there was the fire, there was the fire builders, and there were the shamans that took this, and it was a group shamanistic psychedelic experience where everybody drank these crazy concoctions together and had this like spiritual experience. And our modern society lacks that. We've gone away from that, and we've lost it. And that is the ills of modern society, period, is just that we lack that. We lack empathy for our fellow man, and we're quickly destroying the last few resources that the humans have left on this earth. And I'm not a big save the earth person. I just think that we're barreling down a steady highway towards obliteration, self-obliteration, which is kind of sad. But certainly, I think that it's not to say that, okay, well, now it's required that we're going to take these drugs, do this magic. It's more a nod to that psychedelic experience. Like you said yourself, it's something that you had in your life at an earlier time that, evolved into something different. And, that's beautiful and that's great. But people that are always sober their whole lives, never go to the other side, they're missing out.
But that brings us to our next point, the next protocol.
Which is the one that says magic done without drugs isn't. And that's the thing that I challenge you on. Yeah,
it's essentially yoga or spirituality or religion or any other thing, but it becomes magic when you drink the shaman's tea. That's the difference. That's when you cross over, and it can be done in so many different ways, and it's not something that you have to do all the time but there is something fundamental to me in magical practice about the psychedelic journey and the shamanistic experience. You can be a yogi, you can be a high swami, you can be a high priest or priestess in tons of religions, be extremely advanced. You can be a Sufi and be a man on a mountain, totally wise, and be sober. But that's not magic. Magic is the guy drumming, dancing crazy around the fire, tripping on mushrooms. That's magic. He's on the other side. And again, that's my definition of magic. I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. That's just, in OM, that's kind of like, that's my bag. It's my order. So I get to to make up the bag, And it's not that everybody might 100% agree with me. James does this stuff with me. It's not to say that he 100% agrees with me on all these statements and stuff. It's just a conversation, really.
I know part of the reason why it's in there is to be controversial.
And that as well, yeah.
To kind of to smack people around and say, you got to stop being afraid.
Yeah.
At the same time, in your mind, in your world, can you replace the word drug with altered state of consciousness? Can you do it by, holding your breath? Can you do it by through
No,
the
because
circle.
then you're talking about yoga again. Again, the shamanistic psychedelic experience comes from like the medicine itself. It is the third gnosis. There is sex gnosis and death gnosis, inhibitory and excitatory, anyway up and down the line. But chemonosis is a third category, and that's the third part of the triangle. That's the third part of the triangle of what you would call magic with a K. Now, if you want to practice any other type of spirituality, I can see that being, it can be just as valid. Absolutely, it can be just as valid if that's what you're asking. This is not a validity argument. It's not like, oh, this is just what magic is. Magic is not these other things, which are also different spiritualities, which is just as valid for the people that practice them, and probably just as cool and weird.
Yeah,
But
it's not a question of validity on my part. It's my trying to understand what I've read here and, make sure that we are kind of talking about the same thing. And besides which, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. So
I'm the ball buster.
Yeah, and again, James is right. We put it in there because we want to be punk rock and badasses. We want to sell this book. I mean, we're about selling the book. The more people that hear the words Gutter Bible or OM or Order Emergent Magi or EMK or any of these buzzwords or hear it talked about or see it, I mean, that's one shell of the onion of more energy towards the paradigm that we're trying to build. The people that buy it and practice with us, and that's closer and closer. And then there's the core center of us that are doing this as a project. Like, this is a lifetime project that when I die and I'm gone, that people still do this and the order continues after me.
So the other thing I find really fascinating about it is Pete Carroll once said that chaos magic was a system of pure magic.
Right.
Which I agree. But chaos magic still needs paradigms, still needs something for the person to believe in, whether it be temporary or not. And to me, this is the first paradigm of pure magic.
Okay, well, I would agree and disagree with you. I think that chaos magic isn't a magical paradigm. Chaos magic is a philosophy of applied, like, physics in magical practice, essentially.
It's a tool set.
You're right. It's a tool set. And if we don't apply, I mean, it has to be applied to something, right? EMK is a actual magical paradigm. It's a paradigm that is fleshed out, that has different parts. And it came from magic, and it's like calling it's like calling a toolkit the same thing as like an airplane that it built. Like,
right.
He was like, here is this screwdriver, and here's this hammer, and here is all this stuff. And like, EMK is something that's built out of that. And it's, of course, a huge nod to, of course, chaos magic. I mean, chaos magic leads into the whole thing. I mean, if I wasn't a practicing, heavily practicing chaos magician, I never would have been able to develop a paradigm this far. It was mostly developed by chaos magicians, not entirely, but a lot of the big hitters, the big rituals and stuff have been chaos magic events and organizational get-togethers and whatnot. So it is certainly a huge carryover. But again, chaos magic, it doesn't have it doesn't have kind of a system to master. This is a little bit different.
I see in the foreword that it says that correspondences are forbidden, and a lot of people who are getting into magic or practice magic or are wannabes are taught that you have to have correspondences because sympathetic magic is making like something else. So tell me about why correspondences are forbidden and what you use in place of them.
Well, I mean, essentially, what I don't like correspondences because I don't want to get mired down in old systems, because it's always what happens when new stuff gets developed is that it has all these trappings of the old system. It's like, well, who is Mungloth? Oh, is he this, certain Norse god? And, that also has this, other three entities, or is it, have something to do with these Egyptian something, or, is it Cthulhian? Is it something that, Lovecraft wrote about in this story or something like that? And really what I want to get into more is doing the magic and developing what the spiritual system is, rather than trying to up with something that it's never going to line up with, right? Because even when the correspondences are close, I mean, it's really not an effective method. I mean, things aren't always correspondent. Like Babylon is not, the other, Babylon is an entity that's essentially been around for the last 100 years, more or less, really getting developed in the last 100 years. So, to try and run correspondences with Babylon and be like, oh, she's Ishtar, oh, she's this and that, or whatever, or she's a pop star, on MTV, all this kind of stuff. I just can kind of drag it down, I think. Whereas Babylon is something that's so archetypal, you can't help but kind of draw correspondences. This stuff isn't. This stuff is totally weird and is on its own, and it's just I don't know. I prefer to spend time doing more invocation and developing the system rather than trying to figure out like where it's coming from.
How do you navigate the landscape and figure out who or what you're calling upon?
Oh, geez. Well, how we navigate the landscape, I guess, is it changes from ritual to ritual. We have a lot of different techniques of altered consciousness, scrying. We have, some tech, if you will, some equipment that allows us to see into the other dimensions. We've got some toys and different techniques that we use. Not always the same.
I think I understand what she's asking. The territory is the Gutter Bible in and of itself. I'm
thinking like the ether of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking about like, how do we go to the other side? I mean, through trance states, usually in groups.
Oh, no, I know how to get to the other side.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and we just kind of we do invocations, and then we try and interrogate whatever comes back through the person that's channeling.
It seems to me like you're saying, and I think I just heard you say the word channel. It seems to me that what you're doing is you're opening yourself up and you're channeling the spirit that comes through.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Okay, I totally understand that because that's what I do.
Yes. Yep. It's the only thing is, instead of a lot of people do it, instead of using, whatever particular spiritual practice you have, the filter that we use to go is the Gutter Bible. You could just flip to a random page and trace a sigil out of it, or just chant random words out of there. That's pretty much how we do it. And then see what information comes back, depending on the person that's doing the invocation, and also the person that's, working with that spirit, or if it's, and then also depending on how many people you got. Is it a 5-person ritual? Is it 20 people, 30 people in the room? You get just different results each time. Some of the stuff we do is experimental, one-off stuff. Sometimes we keep working with stuff. It seems to be like kind of, and I'd like to get back a little bit to the dual emergences here. Dual emergence is kind of like every magic that came before EMK. So if you've got, Enochian, that kind of, that the first emergence is like the Enochian system, that kind of comes out of the old school medieval stuff that Dee and Kelly are doing. And then they develop that into like their magic. It's like a 2-step thing. And then it never really kind of goes further than that, because it degenerates back into their own personal ego. And then one sleeps with the other dude's wife because the angel tells him to, or whatever, such nonsense. And it kind of falls apart. It kind of always does for black magicians. Like Crowley, same thing. Like he gets inspired, he writes the Book of the Law. That's like his big, inspiration that comes kind of from the other side. And then like his secondary development of that is, then he has Thelema and he writes the whole thing. But then he's kind of a jerk, and he's like making people cut themselves. They say the wrong words and all this other kind of stuff. He dives a dope fiend. So it's the same kind of thing. So with EMK, like it tends on the individual level to have a lot of those dual emergences. So like the Mama Eowek thing is kind of this goddess, this sunken evil goddess, sex and wealth goddess that essentially me and Danica have kind of our own emergence with. Like, she's got this whole thing with the goddess, and I have this whole thing with like the cult that worships the goddess, and like together we kind of do that. And I know James has something that you're experimenting with, kind of that you got through a ritual that you've kind of run off on your own with as well. So like, right. And just when James had done an invocation, and so rather than it being like becoming like dogma of Om, it's more like each person kind of gets their own little fractal and kind of runs with it a little bit. And that's the way it's been kind of developing so far. So everybody kind of has their dual emergence, their own little thing, or or small group things, or stuff that might be like a night or a couple nights or a weekend thing. And then there's like the main EMK stuff, and that's the Mungloth paradigm and the grid of spirits and the stuff that is essentially the group stuff that everybody does that we're always kind of working on. And then besides that, there's all kinds of weird little offshoots that you can use the Gutter Bible. So if somebody just gets it in the mail, they can have their own, come up with a fully functional thing without meeting any of us having anything to do with anything. It's just the PRs and the central group stuff that we're kind of developing for the main stuff that we want to publish, like the book 1 material and eventually the book 2 stuff.
So do you expect any corporeal results from your magic?
Yes and no. I mean, I guess I don't expect them much anymore or try and shoot for it, but it always seems to be that I get results, yes. So
give me some examples.
I was doing like a love magic essentially for a better part of like 6-8 months. I was able to find probably going to be a full-time life partner through that. That was pretty spectacular. And there's a lot of different smaller things that were involved with that along the way. As far as like my smaller results magic stuff, I tend to I'm working more in a little bit of a different paradigm in EMK. Like if I need something, I essentially work a very, very bastardized version of Palo that was taught to me through proper channels, through an indirect kind of way. So like if somebody's car gets stolen, like I just pull out whiskey to my Ungunga essentially and just do prayer magic, and then it's like found the next day. Like I don't go to the Gutter Bible for like any kind of day-to-day results stuff like healing or any of that kind of stuff. The Gutter Bible is like, that's like my long-term religious magical practice. Now I do the pentagram ritual. I try and do that, and I don't do it every day. I forget, but I do try and do that like at the beginning and the end of each day. I'll do that. It's kind of like a daily centering thing. It's kind of an empowering thing, but typically, yeah. Now that being said, the book 2 stuff is intended to kind of develop EMK towards those means and ends a little bit more, with the smaller kind of entities that are involved. My idea is those entities will be like more like call upable, go out and find you a job type entities, rather than the point of EMK right now is so kind of etheric. It's lust, rage, and greed, but it's not so much that it's lust, rage, and greed that are like these demons that you control, as it is an internal system where you're trying to master like your own lust and your own rage and your own greed in the world every day, and by mastering that yourself internally, you're going to be more successful in your day-to-day life.
Oh, see, I interpreted it as you were invoking lust, rage, and greed, and I wondered why. Yeah,
no, it's I mean, it can be done that way, but no, it's actually more the opposite. Is how it's intended. I mean, but that's just an interpretation. You could certainly do it that way. We definitely do sometimes just invoke rage for rage.
And that's a good way to confront it on a spiritual level, so that you're not out there your daily life being controlled by it.
Rage?
Right. It's meant to be sublimated. It's meant to sublimate those desires. Is how the system is spiritually supposed to work. You're supposed to be, in control of your desires enough so that you get all of your desires.
So here's a question: Why does the magic that you do you often refer to it as black magic?
Because I despise the term white magic. It sounds fucking ridiculous. It just sounds ridiculous. Like, black magic is black robes, pentagrams, candles, fucking bones, and that's what we do. Let's not, Baphomet is a goat-headed fucking devil god, and people want to powder it up and make him some kind of like a neo-pagan fairy or something. It's just like I just dislike the term.
He's the angel of light.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is Lucifer.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is the devil.
Fucking black magic.
Which is black magic.
That's straight up black magic. Like, yeah. I mean, like, I don't have any. I don't attach any kind of term to it.
You can call him
like
the devil, but he is
morality.
in actuality the most obedient of all of the angels, because he sacrificed
Lucifer
his
himself?
will to God.
That's a whole nother podcast right there. It's a whole other podcast.
You got me there.
I don't think of Lucifer as evil. I think of him as carrying out his work fantastically.
I don't either.
Whoa. Oh, sorry, dude.
Oh, you're back.
You're back. Good.
I didn't touch anything.
Neither did we.
Neither do we.
All right, well.
What we were saying, Lucifer, I don't consider him evil either. I think God is a fucking prick.
Well, you got to wonder about him. I think they misunderstand him, but again, that's another podcast.
Yeah.
What happens to gray magic? Because, I mean, I don't like the terms white magic and black magic either. And, I don't really like gray even, but, people seem to want to call it something.
This is another thing to sell books, isn't it, Jason?
Donald Michael Craig was the gray magic guy, man. That was his thing, and I loved that man. I thought he was definitely a mentor indirectly and then directly to me for long years. But that was kind of his baby, as far as I knew, was the gray magic shtick. I don't know about that.
I guess I don't consider it a stick. It's that I don't even know who the guy you're talking about is, but I mean, I worked with an
He
entity
wrote Modern Magic, and as far as I know,
called the Gray
that was
Mage for a dozen years.
That was the that was the first and the only time I've ever seen gray magic in print. But I could be wrong.
You have the book. I've seen you use it, and
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
the
it's
doorstop.
definitely in there because he talked. I think that was his philosophical kind of thing he came up with. Was my understanding.
Yeah. Well,
I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong.
This guy just introduced himself to me as the Gray Mage.
And just does gray magic. I mean, again, like
gray just means it was neither good nor bad nor light nor dark. It meant that he had his own interests, and I needed to be careful of what I was agreeing to with him.
Right, and that's why I like the term emergent magic, or EMK. That's why I've tried to recoin it as emergent magic rather than any of the old ones, because emergent doesn't have dark or light associations in anybody's real mind, and that's what we're doing. We're developing a spiritual system. It's not like, we sat down and we made up these spirits and now we're gonna sell this book and we're gonna do that. No, it's like, okay, we're gonna do all this magic and we're going to let these spirits essentially reveal themselves to us.
I like that.
Yeah, and over the years that we do this, we'll learn from these entities, who they are, what they do, what they like, what they don't like, how they can help us, how we can work with them to make fun.
For me, what black magic is anti-establishment. Peter Gray, and he's talking about in his book Apocalypse of Witchcraft, is that you'll find a witch at the end of a pointed finger. We're the ones, the outcasts. We're the ones who's always been anti-establishment. We're the ones who go out to the blasted heath and raise the devil.
Right.
And it's not evil. It's just we've never gotten along with structured power. And
right.
That's why you're the outcast. You're the the old crone. Fuck you. But say black magic. Be proud to wear the badge.
There's also, there's certainly too Peter Carroll's whole. I think his take about white magic being something that involves a higher power or something. I don't know if that's Peter Carroll that wrote it. And black magic is an inner power that you're calling in upon yourself. And that's certainly what I believe. I don't believe there's any external entities outside of the own human psyche, even including like you guys. I literally believe that everything is a progression of a projection of our own fractal individual.
He feels real.
Yeah, right. Everything feels real. So by that sense, I think, I pretty much think it all comes from us. So I would definitely be a black magician in that sense. I don't think that there are spirits or gods or entities that I'm pleasing that are going to help me do my magic. I just think that it's more or less an art form, altered way to go in an altered state of consciousness, way to play with reality a little bit, You know,
So
it's just
basically, what you're saying is it's all about me.
yeah, in a sense it is. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's all about me.
But you are me.
Well, of course.
I mean, there's no desire that's not a selfish desire. Any kind of magic that you would be possibly doing, even if you're trying to heal somebody else, you're trying to heal that person because you love that person and you want to spend more time with that person. That's greed, essentially, and that's a beautiful thing. I'm not saying it's bad, but yeah, I'm definitely I don't think that it's
Okay.
there.
So to kind of do the podcast in reverse, I'm going to go back to the question I usually ask at the start of the podcast, just so people get to know the kinder, gentler Frater. How did you get started in magic?
How did I get started in magic? Well, I pretty much following the Grateful Dead. Following the Grateful Dead, acid drum circles and shit, and you know, I went the psychedelic spirituality, Carlos Castaneda kind of way for a couple years. Yeah, way back in the day, and then you know, and then I got 19, I got my first couple Crowley books. I went to Fancy Art School in Chicago, and they were teaching a magic class there, which I didn't take, but there were other kids that were taking it, and it was heavily teaching about Crowley and OTO, all that kind of stuff was their reading material. They were all reading the Book of the Law and shit. So, at a tiny school, everybody was into it. So I kind of filtered down to me, and then I got the first book, and then I started reading all Crowley all the time. Until I got Liber Null and Psychonaut. I got that when I was probably, well, my daughter's 18. She was in utero when I got that book. So about 19 years ago, I got it, read it all the way through, and that kind of changed everything. But my first group magic was 99 in Milwaukee at a public IoT event where Dave Lee and Josh Wetzel gave presentations on time magic and Cthulhu Mythos, which is the first time I'd ever heard Cthulhu Mythos presented as a workable paradigm. And became a novice after that, but I didn't get initiated until quite a bit later. I think it was about 2007. So I worked heavily in the IoT and here in Europe for a couple of years, and then we started doing the Babylon Festival probably about 6-7 years ago, I think. It was the first time we made it out, and now we do a series of presentations and lectures, rituals at that event. It's in Indiana. It's coming up here. It's great. If anybody wants to go, there's all different types of magic that gets done and presented and whatnot.
Well,
so it's kind of my quick bio.
Speaking of which, that's coming up June 9th. It is in Southern Indiana. Right. We are going to be there. What specific stuff do you have planned for Babylon this year?
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, we're doing a Party Monster large ritual paradigm that's going to be presented by some of our group. And if anybody's familiar with rave culture, 90s rave culture, the movie Party Monster, it's based on that. We are going to do a Twin Peaks inspired ritual. Quite a bit of us work a lot in Twin Peaks. We love that paradigm. That was my fourth degree work when I joined the IoT. My third degree, you have to make a paradigm out of a new paradigm magically, and Twin Peaks was my work. I did that for like 2 years, did all Twin Peaks stuff, bunch of different rituals, a presentation. So I'm heavily into that. We're going to do that. I'm doing a My Little Ponies ritual, which is all about chaos magic and Baphomet and its elements. It's great. I'm really pretty into that right now.
What do you have planned for EMK?
For EMK, what do we have planned?
Well, you got to promote the book. There's
we're doing. We're gonna do a couple different things. I'm gonna do some EMK stuff in our intro class, which we're doing together this year.
We are.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm coming back to do the Chaos 101.
I'm not gonna be there Thursday.
Yeah, no, it's not on Thursday.
Okay.
It's Friday morning. I'm coming back to do the Chaos 101 because I haven't done it in a few years, and it's just never done properly unless I do it. So I'm going to come back, and we're going to tour de force that thing. We're going to do some intro stuff.
Okay, when's the Chaos 101 ritual?
That Chaos 101 is going to be that's going to be Friday morning. So starting Friday morning, that's when. I
don't think you're right, but go on.
Yeah, it's Friday morning.
Because I'd kind of like to see that.
Yeah, and we're also going to be, it's Chaos 101, Intro to Invocation, also Intro to EMK. So we're going to cover quite a bit there. And that's going to be, a great introduction class. Yeah, for Chaos Magic, ritual building. We'll cover a couple different banishing techniques, sigil building, mantras.
Okay, you're right. Okay, Chaos Magic 101 is at 10 a.m. I have to be there at 10 a.m. You fucker.
Is that June 9th or 10th?
That is on June 10th. That's Friday.
It's the Friday.
Okay, then after that we have my stuff on the Ogdoad, which is an Egyptian sort of thing. Mass Chaos later. Then that night, Friendship is Magic. So Chaos 101 is going to be EMK stuff.
Yes, that's also going to have all the basics of EMK. We'll do the pentagram ritual. We'll do a quick little invocation and stuff. So we've got 2 hours there, so we've got plenty of time to do quite a bit.
I'm just going to go over the entire Chaos track here. We got our opening ritual on Thursday.
Right.
And there goes my phone. Sorry, everybody.
Sorry.
Got my opening ritual. I think it's at 1 o'clock on Thursday. We got Satter, Mordecai Silva doing musicals. It's musical sigils that afternoon or that evening at 5. Chaos 101 is going to be Friday at 10 a.m. Friday at 1 is Intro to the Ogdoad. Next one is at 3. No one really likes Girl Scout cookies. I don't know who's running that. Is that David?
That's Dave, yeah. Mr. David Zai, yep. Building your own paradigm workshop on how to build your own paradigm.
Respect My Authority.
Yeah, that's the Eric Cartman invocation that's going to be done by our good friend who's flying over from London. So that's going to be, we've got a Frater from the Pact joining us from foggy London for this.
Mass of Chaos at 7.
Yes, Mass Chaos. That is the central ritual to the IoT, the Mass of Chaos, the invocation of Baphomet. And we'll be doing that one upright. So
8 o'clock is your My Little Pony.
The ponies. That's a sound check for the dance party monster afterwards. So that's going to be a nice little.
So that's 10 a.m. to Midnight Disco 2000s, the Party Monster. We're back on Saturday at 1. Notice how none of our stuff is in the morning except for Chaos.
Yeah, I didn't put us on Saturday morning. You're welcome.
Doing Colors of Chaos. After that, I'm doing an EMK working Trial of Nagala, which is a guided meditation in the world of EMK.
What I figured, I'll be there.
And
Can I get a copy of that?
Sure. Magic at Twin Peaks after that. Fire and Ice. Is that our friend from England again?
Yeah, that's our friend from England. Yeah, and then we kick off the Feast of the Beast after that. Now, the Twin Peaks is going to be on the main stage this year, so we get the main stage for Twin Peaks. Yeah, the Fire Tribe has got something super special, so they asked for extra time, so they moved us to main stage for Twin Peaks, which is going to be great because we'll get the big stage and Twin Peaks. Man, that's one of the. So we can do sound.
Frater Uso will be involved in that.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's the master.
All right. And that's what we got going on. And then when are we going to fish? Sometime in June.
yeah, absolutely.
Fish in Noblesville, Indiana. Yeah.
Fish at Deer Creek, baby. Oh yeah.
It's not Deer Creek anymore, but
yeah, everybody wants to say that. Well, it's always going to be Deer Creek to me.
Which one's is Noblesville used to be Deer Creek?
Yeah, it used to be Deer Creek.
Okay.
out there in Noble Tucky.
Yeah. That would be fun. Anything else? What do you want to leave our listeners with? How do they contact you?
Well, you've got what's the email for the book? That's our best contact.
They just call up Mugloff.
They can just call up Mungloff, or
boom.
You can email the Order of Emergent Magi at Emergent Magic, magic with a K, Emergent Magic at gmail.com. You can email us there. We're probably going to start a Facebook maybe page
Yeah, we'll do that post Babylon. We'll take some pictures out there. We'll get the mask going, and we'll set up a Facebook page. Facebook kids love it.
Most
You're
important,
gonna put the link on the
Link-
show
the
notes
link will be in
because
our show
Magic
notes.
is Magick. Some people
Yeah, I
just
was gonna
replace
ask
the K.
that. Yeah, Magick, right? Yeah, put a link up for it, and then that way people get a hold of us. That's good.
buy the book at lulu.com. You can
Right.
also get it at Amazon. Other booksellers shortly. It is only print. It does not translate well to an electronic book.
Right.
So it's only print copies. And bring your copy to Babylon, or you can buy some there too. We're bringing some copies to Babylon.
When's
Yeah,
book
absolutely.
2 coming out?
It's gonna be a minute. Probably like 18 months for book 2 at least, maybe a couple years. But we got our best people on it. It's definitely
Order
coming
me.
along. It's definitely coming along. Yeah, looking forward to Babylon. Hopefully, we get some new people out there this year. It's a great festival. Great way to get out to the woods, do some magic for a couple days, get away from it all.
Drop ticks in your hair.
Well, I don't have to worry about that. So I'm
Yeah, you're good.
Hey, thanks a lot, brother, for coming
Yeah.
and talking to us.
Yeah, right on. Awesome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
We're gonna head out. Hang on the line here for a minute, and
Okay.
after I stop broadcast, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you.
All right.
We'll see you next month, hopefully.